First of all, let me thank you all for coming out here on today to hear my announcement. But before I do that, let me just take a moment to thank the press corps in general for the hard work you do for the last 4 years of making sure that the public got the truth. There's no such thing as alternative facts. And the work that you all did over the past 4 years to make sure people got information that was accurate and timely helped save lives with COVID-19, help people empower themselves to protect themselves. And so for the work you do, I know that it's backwards for an elected official to tell you thank you for what you do, but it is important. And we have to remember that information is power. And to my family and friends who are gathered here today, I just want to thank you for all of the support, not over the last 10 years in Congress, but over the last 21 years of being elected. I had the great fortune to be elected at 26 years old, 1 year out of law school, with the goal of empowering our next generation and make sure that no community is left behind, and especially communities like the one I grew up in at Goretti Playground, that we invested in our children and we invest in our kids. So as 11 years as a state legislator, fighting for empowerment, fighting for people, fighting for real lives, real jobs, it came a point where I realized that I needed to go to Congress to continue to fight for people, to protect the Affordable Care Act, to make sure that we invest in flood control, make sure that we do federal criminal justice reform, make sure that we invest in education, make sure that we take care of people who needed our help. And so George Will, the conservative political columnist, once said that the future has a habit of arriving unannounced. So today, here, I've had to make one of the hardest decisions that I've made in my life. And with consultation with my wife, Raquel, my mother, Maple, and numerous family and friends and elected officials, many of whom are in this room, talking to both the former African-American congressman that held this seat, and talking to the vice president, president-elect, who was clear in his ask, but also clear in what we could do together and what this country needed at this moment in time. So because of that, I am here today to announce that in January, before January 20th, I will resign my seat in the United States Congress and take a position in the President-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris presidential administration. The title that I will have will be Senior Advisor to the President. It will be Assistant to the President and Director of Public Engagement. And let me tell you why it's important for Louisiana. There's no formula on earth that I would have left my seat in Congress after attaining seniority, after becoming the Assistant to the Whip in leadership, after chairing the Congressional Black Caucus, and being the current chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, if I did not think that this new role would serve Louisiana better than my past role. And so this new role will allow me to offer advice to the president when he wants it, maybe sometimes when he doesn't want it. It will also be an office in the West Wing. And when you talk about the needs of Louisiana, you want someone in the West Wing. And so if you look at where we are in this state, whether we're number 1 or number 2 in poverty, number 1 or number 2 in obesity, last in education, last in health outcomes. So pretty much for too long, we've been last in everything that's good or first in everything that's bad. And it hasn't come from a lack of will by the people in Louisiana. It's not the fault of our governor or our legislature. But if we're going to improve the lives of the people in Louisiana, it's going to come through investing in the people of Louisiana. And that's going to take real resources, and it's going to take real money, and it's going to take things that we do not have here in Louisiana alone. It's going to take the help of the federal government. And so I will say two things in conclusion. One, the legislative office will remain open until a successor is elected. The staff will stay on. And one of the most amazing parts of being in the United States Congress is not doing the TV interviews. It's not actually voting on the floor of the House of Representatives. It's answering the calls of people who need help. Because if they take the time to look up the number to the congressional office and call, it means they really need it. So whether it was the guy who was arguing with Social Security Administration for 10 years, that we finally got involved, and they had to pay him $97,000 in back benefits, or it's the lady who called 10 years after Katrina saying, I'm tired of walking to the end of the block to check my mail. Why can't the Postal Service start delivering our mail back to our houses? And we were able to get that done. Or it's for our veterans who fought and put their lives on the lines of this country, and far too often their benefits are wrong, their treatment at the VA is improper, and they need our assistance. Those are the things that make up the office of a congressman. And so my office will continue to do that until the successor is elected, and then my role transfers. I will transfer over to the White House. But I'll conclude with this. This is a sad day for me to announce that I am leaving something I fought so hard to get, to say that I am leaving something that means so much to me. But I do want you all to know I am not leaving the people of Louisiana. I am not leaving the people of the 2nd Congressional District. I am New Orleans through and through. I bleed black and gold. But more importantly, you know, what's also important is that for a kid like me, who went to Osborne Elementary School about 4 blocks from here, went on to Livingston Middle School about a mile from here, and then finished from, well, went to Kennedy, can't leave that out, and St. Aug, finished from Ben Franklin, which is about half a mile that way, and I still live in this very community about a couple blocks away. That will never change. And so I just want that next kid who is at Osborne or Livingston or any of our great New Orleans public schools that produced me and that my mother taught at for over 20 years to know that you can go from Osborne to the White House. And I'm not going as president, but I'm going as the president's friend. So with that, let me just say thank you all for coming out, and I'll take a few questions.
Congressman, good morning. So how do you think your personal experiences will help you to make a strong case to the president election? Have you started talking to him already about some of the needs you think need to be addressed, like indigenous groups?
No, we've talked about Louisiana and our needs a lot. And not just Louisiana, a lot of the southern states are in the same predicament. It's been failed Republican leadership with austerity plans to help the people for decades, and it just doesn't work. And he and I talk about it a lot. We were in Georgia together when he gave a speech at, I thought it was Warming Mountain, and you know, so we talk a lot. And when he was in the beginning of getting this together, he came down and played golf right here at Pontchartrain Park at our historic golf course. So he knows the community well. He knows my commitment to it. And I look forward to not only changing Louisiana, but the entire South and empowering its citizens.
Can you talk about how the Biden administration is going to approach another stimulus package, coronavirus stimulus package? And number two, what about the vaccine rollout? What do you expect to happen with the Biden administration?
Well, two things. One, President Trump should stop playing games with the lives of the American people. And so Operation Warp Speed, which was his operation to get the vaccine created and to figure out a way to distribute it, we should be getting briefed on that so that we can offer our input and we can be ready on day one that the vaccine is ready to distribute it logistically. And so the fact that we're not having an orderly transition, and you saw the Vice President say this yesterday, could cost lives. And that, I think, would be sinful and a tragedy. So we're continuing to press upon the Trump administration to engage in a full-fledged transition and give us access to not only cabinet members and national security briefings, but also all of the information related to warp speed so that we can get that out. So that is, very important for us. And I forgot the first part of the question.
In terms of another stimulus package that's been
Well,
held up during the election.
Look, we passed the HEROES Act almost 145 days ago, which would have given aid to local and state governments that are in desperate need. And I thought I saw the mayor here earlier. She can tell you how important that is. And it's being held up in the Senate by Mitch McConnell. But that is something that we should not wait until January 20th to do. We should get that done. We should not go through the Christmas holidays with the anxiety of Christmas without helping the American people. You will understand this. There are some points in your life that you get knocked down, and it's not your fault, but you don't have the capacity to lift yourself back up. We lived through that with Katrina and Rita when our levees failed. We got knocked on our butts, and we didn't have the capacity as a city or people to lift ourselves up without the federal government coming in, spending $15 billion on the levee, billions of dollars so that we could rebuild our homes. And COVID is the same thing. Our citizens find themselves in desperate ways through no fault of their own. And a lot of the fault was the federal government because they knew and they hid it from the American people. And people could have made better decisions to protect lives. So we have a responsibility as a federal government to help people. And I believe that we will get it done, but we should get it done before Christmas. We should not wait to drop this on the lap of the next president. We are the United States Congress, the House and the Senate, and we should get it done.
On that subject, you said that things have changed in the Senate since the election was over. You see some movement on Mitch McConnell's part to move forward with some version of some other bill.
Well, I think Mitch will do whatever President Trump tells him to do under the direction of Mnuchin. And so, yeah, I see a little more openness to do it. They're still in, shell shock from the election. And of course, we still have 2 Senate seats that are in Georgia that are up for grabs. But we should not let that get in the way of what we need to do for people. So I fully expect it to get done.
Spoke briefly about being able to affect change in that new role as White House, specifically affect change here locally in the region. How do you see that?
Well, a number of ways. Let me start with being able to talk to and advise cabinet secretaries. There's no secret that New Orleans education, our public school system, needs some help. And so it will be very refreshing to be able to articulate to a Secretary of Education that I am a product of New Orleans public schools, that my son is in New Orleans public schools, and that my mother taught in New Orleans public schools. And so I know what they can produce, giving the resources to do it. And so being able, I believe, to advocate to cabinet secretaries will be very important. For example, fighting for the national flood insurance to make sure it not only remains affordable, but accessible for people also. Make sure that they understand how important these levees are, not just to New Orleans, but to St. John, St. Charles, St. James, all the way up to Baton Rouge. So that's why I'm leaving, because I get to take my Louisiana experience with me to the White House to make sure that people understand our problems, and I don't have to talk with a Southern accent to get it done.
You've done a lot of work in the second congressional district. Would you like to pass the baton? I guess, do you plan on endorsing anybody? Some of them may be in this room right now, although the mayor told me she's not going to run for your seat. Do you plan on endorsing anybody for your soon-to-be vacated congressional?
I will play an active role. I'm going to look at all the candidates that are running. I will talk to all the candidates to see what their impression is of Congress and the role that you have to play. And a lot of that is the constituent services that I talked about. A little bit of it is playing well with others, but the most important part is making sure that you put Louisiana citizens first. And look, I've been an equal opportunity alienator. I've alienated Democrats before and Republicans before, but what I always tried to do was to make sure that if I was doing it, that I did it on behalf of the people of the 2nd Congressional District and on behalf of Louisiana and our hardworking citizens.
Congressman Richmond, could you talk about Biden's, President-elect Biden's Lift Every Voice plan and what that's going to look like on the ground?
Well, the Lift Every Voice plan is actually a very robust African-American agenda, and it tackles everything from black women's mortality rates in terms of childbirth and all of those issues. But let me tell you where it starts. It starts with economic empowerment, investing in education, making sure that our kids at 3 and 4 years old are not in daycare, but that they're in a real school learning topics. Then it goes on to economic empowerment in terms of $150 billion for black entrepreneurship. Then we talk about the over $70 billion that we would invest in HBCUs. And then we get to criminal justice and police reform. But the most important thing is it's an empowerment plan to show and uplift every community. But part of the plan is very specific to African Americans because some of the harm that has been done was very specific to African Americans. So it's a plan that I'm proud of. We've talked about in a very robust manner on the campaign trail, and we're going to keep doing it. And the other pledge that he made was that his cabinet was going to be one of the most diverse in the history of this country. And so you look at his pick for vice president, it was a historic pick. It broke several glass ceilings, and I fully expect him to govern like that.
Congressman Richmond, you said that you want to take this position because of the power and the influence that you'll have, although you don't know how long you'll have that position. Whereas if you had stayed in Congress, presumably you could hold the seat for the next 30 years and have rising seniority in the House and greater influence. So why did you choose at least the short-term power position than the long-term position you could be holding for a long time?
Well, look, it's a great question. Here's the short answer, though. I've been in Congress now for 10 years. Since I've been in Congress, we have never had the House and the Senate. So for my first 8 years, we were in the minority. And all we could do was block bad stuff that the Republicans did in the House for the most part, and then we had to live with whatever the Senate did. And for the last 2 years, we've been in the majority in the House, but the Senate is run by Mitch McConnell. We've sent him hundreds and hundreds of bills that would help Louisiana and other places for them to just die on his desk. And so when you have a divided government, it's really, in this day and time, it's a broken government. And so the White House would give you the ability through executive orders, through government agencies, through the executive branch to implement the change you want to see much faster than waiting for Mitch McConnell to see the light or be Mitch. So it just makes more sense in a divided government to be there. And look, it's not about, and this is what it boils down to. If it were about me, then yes, great job security. I could be in the House for another 20 years and I can die in the House of Representatives. But at some point, it's not about, you just can't look at it about being about me. It's really about the community. So I have to step out and hope that over the next 4 years, I can make change that will last lifetimes or for generations. And so I always use this quote about others, so I'll just throw it out there now. A politician worries about the next election. A statesman worries about the next generation. So when I had to decide what I wanted to be, I decided I wanted to be a statesman and worry about the next generation of kids coming from New Orleans, as opposed to the next election.
Talk a little bit about this, but how difficult has it been in the short transition when you have a president that refuses to concede, in fact, tells his supporters that the victory was stolen, the election was rigged? How difficult has that been, and are you hoping that eventually
That's the goal. And I fully expect on an orderly transition. I think that he is having a hard time coming to grasp with the real facts and not alternative facts that the election is over. Joe Biden won in a landslide. The people have spoken, and it's time to move on. And that's what makes the United States of America better than any other country in the world, is that we have peaceful transitions of power. And we do that for a reason. And so I expect that at some point, the Senate, his confidants, his advisors, and the president himself will understand how important that is and how important a concession speech is. And so I'm not sure if he's big enough to do the concession speech, but a peaceful transition of power, I'm hoping that he will rise to that moment. Well, we're going to have to work harder, no doubt. But part of the reason why Joe Biden is who he is because he served in the Senate, and he has relationships over there. And as we saw from the election, he has coattails and the ability to win in places that Democrats have not won in a long time. So I think that he will have leverage in the Senate to get bipartisan support for a lot of his initiatives. So. Well, I did talk to Steve. The good news is that Democrats hold the power in the House. And I can talk to Speaker Pelosi and Whip Clyburn any day, all day, and just run over Steve if I need to. Because, you know, you can't govern if you can't win, and we control the House, and our agenda is far more aggressive than what the Republicans want to do. But I talked to many members of the delegation about it also. And I'll just close, Travis, I can't believe you didn't ask who's the replacement going to be in the congressional baseball game. I mean, that's just, well, the good news is I get to retire 8-0. Not because I'm that good, it's just because it's all relative. So if you're in the woods and you're being chased by a bear, you don't have to be stronger than the bear, faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than the person you're with. So in that context, I did not have to be Hank Aaron or Willie Mays to do well in the congressional baseball game because it was only Republicans I was playing against. So hopefully Colin Allred, or we'll find a replacement pitcher, but I fully expect us to continue to do well, and I'll just move over from playing to helping coach and manage the team. So. With that, let me again thank everybody for coming out today. It's, I believe, a great day for Louisiana, and I just think tomorrow and all the tomorrows to come will be better because we have someone in the White House that will never forget where they came from. So thank you all. Pass it.